We are very excited and grateful to have Sharifa Judith Keith with us today. During childhood, Sharifa realized that her life purpose was to work with those experiencing illness. Through the years, her education, training, and work with the sick has expanded into its present-day holistic approach. She first earned a BA in nursing, practicing as a certified registered nurse anesthetist. She earned a PhD in clinical psychology and has established a private practice in Chicago as a clinical health psychologist. She attended and graduated from the University of Spiritual Healing and Sufism, and then continued her studies by earning a Master of Divinity in Spiritual Ministry and Sufi Studies, with another Master of Divinity in Spiritual Peacemaking. Sharifa currently lives in Atlanta, Georgia, and works as a holistic spiritual healer and teacher. She teaches Sufism in the Institute of Spiritual Healing and is a pole teacher with Dr. Ibrahim Jaffe in the Year 4 Advanced Spiritual Healing in the University of Sufism. Sharifa also hosts spiritual retreats in her home and virtually through Zoom. She has a private practice through which she offers spiritual healing as well as spiritual coaching. According to our guide, Sidi Muhammad, her Sufi spiritual name Sharifa means deep understanding of the heart, which manifests during healings she gives from the divine love. Her teaching today is the Nafs of Allah. Sharifa, welcome and thank you for being with us today. And Sharifa, you are muted.
I forget that sometimes.
There you go.
You're keeping me on target here. Thank you for inviting me here, and I'm just happy to be here with all the beloveds. I recognize a number of names, and happy to have you here and listening to this talk, the Nafs of Allah. When I first heard the Nas of Allah, I went, what? So perhaps that was your reaction too, I don't know. But before we begin to talk about it, let's do the Fatiha and the elongation, and then I'll do a dua and then begin with the teaching. So, Allah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Irrahmanirrahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina sirata mustaqim. Sirata ladina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Ameen. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ibrahim Rasulullah. Musa Rasulullah. Isa Rasulullah alayhim salam. Oh, beloved Allah, beloved our Lord. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. Ya Allah, Ya Kareem. Ya Allah, Ya Shafi. Ya Allah, Adul Jalali Wal Ikram. Ya Allah, Ya Nur. Ya Allah, Baki. Ya Allah, Ya Wali. Thank you, beloved Allah, for your light, your love, your generosity, your guidance, your love for us. Thank you for gathering all our hearts together, Ya Allah, Ya Jamia. Open up the ears of our hearts today so that we can hear the teaching that you brought through Sidi and his books and have opened up for me to teach today. Thank you, beloved Allah, for bringing us to this path to walk closer to you, to the truth and who we are and who you are, beloved Allah. La ilaha illallah. We love you, we praise you, we thank you. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ameen, ameen, ameen. So, welcome everyone to this talk on the nafs of Allah. I'm glad that you're all here. What I'd like to do is just open up right now and give me one word or a phrase of what nafs means to you. So you can just unmute yourself and let me know so I have an idea of where everybody is coming from with what they think the nafs are. Danielle.
Ego.
Okay. Anybody else have a different word or a phrase to describe it?
Desire.
Desire. Okay. Thank you. Who else? No. Let me close. No. Anyone else want to say something? You know, I thank you for those who shared, and that's most of, that's how we identify the nafs, is that ego self. And, for many of us, we feel like we're in mujahada with it all the time, with our nafs and shaitan. And depending on how long you've been on the path, how much you've walked on the path, it can mean different things for different people. I know that it seems like when I first got on the path that, the nafs were just such difficulty for me, but I had a lot of things to work through. I was in that mujahada with myself all the time. And, from that, I always had this negative idea about the nafs and, just, will you just leave me alone? Would you quit just talking to me? I'm having to fight you all the time. And so, but I continued to do my practices and continued to do the tauba and remembrance, getting up early in the morning and walking and taking classes, because I really wanted to know the truth. I really wanted to walk close to my Lord, who I'd wanted to do that all my life. So I was interested, so at some point, when I heard about the nafs of Allah, I was just going, Allah has nafs? It just was a new concept to me, I guess. I mean, maybe other people had talked about it and went in one ear out the other, I don't know. But so that's why I thought I would bring this up, because no matter where you are, and even though as we walk deeper and we've listened, we recognize, we're conscious of when the voice of the nafs or the voices of shaitan come up, and we've hopefully learned how to shut them down and turn and listen to the voice of Allah. the nafs never leave us, which means that, from what I know about the shaitan, he gets a little sneakier and craftier at trying to pull us off the path. And as we walk deeper, those deeper levels of the issues that we face in our lives and the wounds that may still be there come up, and the voices of our nafs come up, and whatever emotions that brings with them, we feel like, hey, I thought I healed this. Why is this issue back? So I hope today that this will help give you broaden your the way you hold the nafs, the way you interact with your nafs, and understand a little bit more of how Allah has set things up in his generosity and in his wanting us to return to him and get to know him through knowing ourselves. And our nafs are the big number way that we get to know ourselves. So what I want to do first is read from, I'm going to read from the glossary of the music of the soul on page 466. What their definition of the nafs is. And nafs is singular, it's one. Though, sometimes in our English we want to say nafs they, but it's nafs it. Nafs corresponds to the receptive pole of being, the self, the soul alongside the spirit, Aru, which represents the active pole of the being in man, which is also called the intellect, al-aql. Okay, so that's the definition. So let me say that again. So the nafs, our nafs, is the receiving part of our being that consists of the self, soul, and spirit. Now we always think of the self, of the ego self, but the nafs is really the self, the soul, and the spirit. And the spirit, which is the non-individual aspect of the soul, this definition says it's the intellect. The spirit, it consists of the intellect, as opposed to the lower individual soul and nafs. So, and at first I thought about that. What does that mean? But if we think about the first intellect, and that is through the Muhammadi light, and of course, the Muhammadan spirit is the father of our spirits. So that intellect, and when we get the white, as you walk deeper, and your mind starts to be purified and turns white, you have gnosis coming in, then that's the intellect that he's talking about. So really, the nafs consists of everything that we are as human beings. But that we do have that ego self that we have to fight with, that is called, and that and it's written about, and it's talked about, and the nafs is we always identify it as the ego self. But this broadened definition from the music of the soul may start to open up to you what we're talking about when we're talking about the nafs of Allah. So I just want you to hold that definition in your heart as I'm going to read some excerpts from Sidi's book, The Song of the Flute of the Deep Knowing. And you can write this down, because I don't want you to go grab the book and read along, because I'm going to be reading excerpts. I want you to listen from your heart. But it's on from pages 203 to 207. This same chapter is also in Conversations in the Zawiya, and those pages are from 28 to 33. So if you'd like to go back and read the whole chapter after this talk, then you've got the resources here. The chapter in the Song on the Flute of the Deep Knowing is called The Arabic Word Nafs. And I'm going to be reading you excerpts from it. Sidi writes, the Arabic word nafs has a very deep meaning. When everything has life, this means it has nafs. In other words, you can say that nafs is part of life. You can also say that Allah sent his word first and through everything, through his word be, because everything is through Allah's first word, kun, be. And he sent everything through the nafs. When he said be, which he was talking about creation, he sent everything through the nafs. This nafs is from the nafs of God. You can say that the nafs is not a shadow, but from the reality of God. This is very deep, my beloved. So just stopping a minute, if you think about that when Allah created everything, he sent the whole creation through nafs, and now nafs is life. In other places, is also say the nafs and life is equivalent to the big S soul. So this is all, what he's saying is that everything is sent through the nafs that has life, and it's from Allah. La ilaha illallah. So just hold that in your hearts. When I say that everything is from Adam, I mean by Adam, all of humanity. The body of a person returns to the earth like the trees, the animals, everything. It returns to the mother of the presence. But where is the nafs? Where does she go? There is only one nafs. Like the sun, she sends her light to everything so that she reaches everything. She reaches the sea and those who live in the sea, and in the sky and on the earth. And the nafs have 7 stations for everyone, for every kind. You walk, and everything walks until it walks like you walk. Everything Allah created is part of you. When you walk, it walks. Know, my beloved, that from this Allah says, clean yourself. When you know yourself, then you know your beloved God. So I say that the person who knows herself knows how to return herself and to understand what the nafs mean. This is the nafs of Allah. Do you know what I mean? In that moment, she is deeply praying. More than that, she is in the deep knowing. In this way, she lives in the world of the unity, completely without separation, without numbers. She does not see numbers at all. She is absent. There is no presence at all completely, and this is very deep. For that, I am careful about the nafs of every one of my beloveds to walk all of these stations, because after that, the nafs change to be the heart. And through the stations of the heart becomes the soul. The nafs is a station. All of the 7 stations of the nafs is only one station. And then he goes on to talk about walking through the 7 stations of the heart, the 7 stations of the soul, and then the 7 stations of the secret. When you continue, and I want to read, this is towards the end of this chapter. When you continue in the way of Allah to be in the stations of the soul, the heart changes to be in the soul, to be the soul in the world of the Al Jabarut. This is also very deep and very soft until you reach the heavens, where you also find 7 creations until you come to be the secret. And he talks about as you walk through the 7 stations of each of the big stations, he calls them also the 7 creations, because every time you walk through one of those substations, you become a new creation. So you become the secret. In that moment, the devil surrenders. You become nothing but the reality of the soul that returns to the soul of Allah, and the shaitan cannot make anything. In that moment, you are with your beloved God, soul to soul, and there is no separation after that. You are here, really. From this sun, you are in the deep prayer with your beloved God. In this world, there is no time to waste because you completely find what you want. This is the station of the prophets. This means you begin to really be in the station of the prophets. This means that the real self is more pure and has soul. For that reason, Allah says, "He who knows himself knows me." And what I want to highlight again is, as you walk through the first big stations of the nafs, heart, soul, spirit, you end up where your real self, you find your real self, which is more pure and has soul. So that right away tells me that the nafs that we talk about, yes, we usually are talking about the nafs in the walking in the station of the nafs. So what that really tells me is that ego self that we identify with, it's our false self. It's not the true self. And one of the reasons we have it is to help us find who we truly are, who our true self really is. So I want to read from Music of the Soul. I'm trying to look at the time we have so that I have a number of readings, but I'll skip some because I have some experiential things I want us to work with. But I also want you to, I'm really trying to get you to understand, to open up again. We have the station of the nafs, but yet they're from the nafs of Allah. So this is on page 162 from Music of the Soul, if you want to write this down. The pure Adam, the original Adam, lived only to remember. He had no body, only Allah. He had no beginning nor end, only light from Allah. No shadow of presence apart from Allah. After that, Allah, in his wisdom, wanted the creation of the worlds. If he had not put the nafs in Adam, there would be no world because Adam was turned only to Allah, and Allah had turned him toward the creation of the world in order for mankind to be born through him. So he put in Adam the self, and this self was in 3 parts. First, the desire to eat the fruit and then to eliminate, and that's called nafs ashawaniya. For this, he had to leave the garden, because in the garden of the first world, there was no eating or defecating or sleeping, no fruit, and no separation of Adam from the light of Allah. Then the desire to sleep with woman and make children. And then the third part of the self was to fill the world, and to fill the world with human beings, to sleep with woman, to make children, and to fill the world with human beings. Excuse me. And the third part of the self of Adam was a desire to become king of the creation. Then, as he had put nafs in Adam to fulfill his plan, Allah made Iblis also to continue Allah's message. And they both assumed their roles as Allah wanted them to. Adam and Iblis met in the garden to complete a circle. What of the fruit? The fruit is life, life of this world. Adam already had the life in the first world, the life of the light of Adam. But when he had eaten from the tree, he began to dress in the 99 veils and to carry many qualities between himself and his original light, the secret of Allah, which was the only thing he knew in the first world. From the first world, many worlds arose through the agency of the self, through the nafs of Adam, through all those parts of himself. Now you see two Adams. The first is the pure, original mirror of Allah, and the second is the metaphorical Adam, the human being, who is a shadow of the original Adam. You cannot see the first Adam with human eyes if you do not know the second, the metaphorical Adam. When you look at him with the eyes of your face, you see a human being like other human beings. But when you see the original Adam with the eye of your soul, you see only Allah in his created mirror. The metaphorical Adam is a veil for Allah. Although he put all his wisdom and light in Adam to know Allah, Adam must also know himself through the metaphor of his own existence for the sake of the creation of the world. The deep Adam is the true son of his father and the eye of Allah through which Allah sees. So we all are the metaphorical Adam, who is trying to return to the original Adam. And we do that to begin with through walking through the station of the nafs. So just hold that thought. And I have another thing to read. Let me see, I got my page number. From page 69 in Music of the Soul. Know that there is no difference between the nafs, the mind, the heart, the soul, and the secret. All are one. There is nothing, only He. But walk, and after you reach Him, the real walking begins. So the point I'm trying to make thus far is that, first of all, the word nafs means more than the ego or the self. So why is that important to understand? Most of us at some point, or maybe still do, hold the nafs in negative ways. And I mentioned that at the beginning. Because when we first started walking the path of Sufism, this beautiful path of love, we learned that we had to stop listening to the voice of the nafs. We did the mujahada with them. many of us came to see the nafs as our enemy. And we can't, and we knew the nafs would listen to shaitan, so they're both our enemies. And they collude together and make us choose the darkness, make us open up to the blameworthy qualities, doing what Allah has called us not to do. And especially for those of us who did not like ourselves, who thought we were unworthy or unlovable, we focused all that angst on our nafs with negative approaches and perceptions and just, oh, look at the nafs, what they made me do, and beating our nafs, which is our ego self, right? How we identify ourselves with who we are in this world, in the dunya, we end up beating ourselves up. But our nafs, even that which develops into the ego self, the nafs are from the nafs of Allah. So Allah has nafs and He gives us nafs. But yet there's no difference between the nafs, the heart, the soul, and the spirit. So how can us holding this perception of the nafs in a bigger way help us with our nafs? What are we supposed to do? So let's just ask Allah, and let's do some dhikring with the name of Allah, and say, Allah, help us. What's this got to do with anything? How does this relate? Help me open up, because some of you may be going, so what's the point here? So let's see what the point is. But I don't want to tell you. I want you to ask Allah. Why would Sidi write this? Why would he talk about the nafs of Allah? And why do we begin our journey to Allah in the station of the nafs and learning about our ego self, the nafs? So with that intention of saying, Allah, help me to understand, and asking Him, open up your heart and let's dhikr with the name of Allah and see what He brings you. Allah, 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 Allah. And take a moment to write down what you got. Just use a word or a phrase. Draw a picture if it came in that way. If nothing came in, draw a question mark. When I sat with this, when I was first contemplating this and asking Allah what He meant by this, what is the deeper understanding of all this, especially holding it in my heart, and holding that Sidi said that the real self is more pure and has soul. And we all have heard, we're here, that he who knows himself knows his Lord. He who knows his self. So what self do we have? Well, most of us, the only self we have are aware of at the beginning is our ego self. Because we all know that that we come in, that Allah sends us with his essence, with the 99 qualities, with a soul, with a spirit, with our spiritual heart, the heart that he is the doorway to the inner worlds. We've all learned that. And he gave us a self in this dualistic world that can either turn to the light or turn to the darkness. Now, as babies and as children, as we grow up, we're not aware of that, we don't know that, and we're not taught that a lot. But we do know that our hearts get hurt and we get wounded, and people tell us who we are. I was Judy, you were April, you were Linda, and they told us what we carried and whether we were smart or stupid, and we started finding our will, and we want our way, and that's mine, and we start to find out who we are. I am so-and-so, I, me, my. That ego self, that nafs. But you see, that was in Allah's wisdom for us to have a self so that we would come to understand that who we thought we were, that what we've been taught, what we've been socialized with, who we came to believe who we are, is a false self. Because there is only Allah. Our true self is with Allah. La ilaha illallah. We're only one. But interestingly enough, our self, our being, not only contains ourself, but we have a heart with our emotions. That's the doorway to Allah, that we can open up our heart more to the divine names. We have a soul. That's our individual uniqueness that makes me, me, and Noor Danielle, her. That's different from me. And then we carry the spirit, the essence of Allah. All of that is in our one being, but it's all one. It's all of what Allah lets us walk back to Allah, to our home where we came from. And it's through working through our nafs, that's ego self, that we end up, because the nafs turn into the heart, which turns into the soul, which, as we walk, then becomes the spirit. And if you look at all the names of those 7 big stations that Sidi gives, every station, the first ones is the nafs, the next one's of the self, the rest are all the soul. But the other names he gives them are An-Nafs Al-Awama. An-Nafs, whatever he named it, is An-Nafs. It's all from who Allah is. From the essence of Allah. So we could say Allah, the big nafs, is who Allah is his Allah's self, which is much more than we can imagine from our own viewpoint of what self is. But he put that in us so that we could get to know ourselves, so we could know who Allah is. So there are 2 primary points here I want to emphasize. The nafs, ourself, is what Allah has given us to be able to help us come to know who we are in our uniqueness, to navigate the world in. But it's also through our nafs that we learn that we have a choice, we have free will to choose how we're going to act or be, or what we do in every moment of our lives. And the second point is that self is an integral part of who we are. that part of us that walks to Allah, that part of us that we identify with, that we start to let go of, and with it we bow. We start to obey Allah and not ourselves. The second point of that, I want you to, it's a part of ourselves. And as we begin to walk to Allah, we need to bring the love and mercy to our nafs instead of mistreating it. Because it's a part of the one, La ilaha illallah. And I'll say a little bit more about that. So when we're talking about hearing the voice of the nafs, and we're with our nafs, we're interacting with our nafs, we need to bring it to Allah. You know, as we're talking to that nafs that voice of the nafs that are trying to turn us to the darkness, to try to make us do something that Allah doesn't want us to do, to, you know, be angry, to steal, to lie to that person, to be rude to someone and hurt their hearts. There's a part of ourselves that says, no, we don't want to do that. That's not right. Why? You know, we talk, why are you doing that? No, that's when, that point is when you realize that you need to bring the light of Allah to that part of the self that wants to turn to the darkness. Bring the light of Allah to that. And say that instead of beating it up, bring it to the light of Allah and bring the love and the mercy to it and bring the healing to it. That's what you're doing when, in many of the healings, when you are trying to heal and with the divine names, that part of this self that's holding on to the human quality and turning to the darkness. So again, it doesn't do you any good to beat your nafs up. What you need to do is bring it to Allah and shine the light on it. To bring the light of Wadud, Ra'uf, or whatever divine name that part of this self is twisted and believes is true or right. Bring it, help it heal. Now you deal with the voice of shaitan differently. You don't do anything. You say no, slam the door, and you don't argue with it. You don't talk with it. You don't try to reason with it. You say no to shaitan, but that nafs of yours is with you for the rest of the time you're here in this world before you go on into the next world that and join Allah. In fact, it is still with you through all the 7 stations. The nafs are there because we still have that in us, that ego there, but it gets less and less, and you end up finding out more and more who you really are, and you become, as you do the healings, you purify and you beautify. So whenever you're dealing with your nafs, understand that's a part of you. And you want to choose, you have in that moment a choice. Do you choose the darkness or the light? Do you choose what that negative, that dark part of your nafs are telling you to do, or you choose the light? Like if that voice of the nafs are saying, you don't deserve that. Why do you think God loves you? You go, wait, no, I got you. You're trying to pull me off here. I see what you're doing. But you know what? I'm not going to choose your voice, which will then, if you choose to follow the voice of the nafs, that's when shaitan can get in. So choose not to follow the voice of the nafs. Choose to hear the voice of Allah. And when you do that, you're also bringing that voice, and you're saying, no, listen, here's what. We need to listen to the voice of Allah and let the light of Allah purify that and heal it. Over and over again, the more you choose the light, the voice of Allah and the light of Allah, that little voice that wants to take you to the darkness will get less and less. And then you'll say, oh no, I know Allah loves me. He knows what's best for me, and he wants what's best for me. And yes, I deserve his love. So I have suggestions to help you learn that ego self is the false self. What you're trying to do is find out who the true self is, the nafs that Allah wants you to align with his nafs, who Allah is. La ilaha illallah. So you want to dhikr with the divine names. You want to clad the nafs with the divine attributes, which aid the eternal holy part in us to blossom and helps the nafs let go of and transform its weaknesses, prejudices, and negative habits. When you're doing dhikr, it helps you forget your ego self, to open yourself beyond it, and to reach the deeper layers of your existence, which are there for you to discover your true self. So another way of doing it is to act against your lower selfish nature that comes out in that ego self. Because that ego self only knows itself. You know, it's kind of, it's so entwined in itself, it can't see anything outside itself. So it thinks in itself, it satisfies itself with things that are all illusion. It loves its mistaken self-interest. It loves to blame others, to profit off of others. And you know what? It truly loves to debase, denigrate, and insult itself. How many times as your nafs told you, your ego self told you you're stupid, or you don't deserve this, or you're not good enough. We can go on and on and on. Or it may tell you, I am so good, I'm better than anybody else. And then you mistreat other people. So you act against that. You understand when those kind of voices come up, it's your nafs. Don't listen to it. Know it's your nafs. I, me, my. It'll always say I, or me, or my. And go no and say, you're mistaken. You don't understand. You're in illusion. You're believing something that's not true. And another way to do is work with your nafs, with your ego self. Do good for selfish reasons. Feed your nafs with the positive results of your good deeds. Let your nafs, remember I said that's a little part of you, bring it on board with the part of you that's wanting to reach Allah. Let it become your partner. Say, no, this part of yourself, no, look, I want you to come be with the rest of who I am, to not be in separation from who I really am. I want you to help me become whole again, to go to the unity. Come and join with Allah, to serving him and doing what he wants us to do. Open up to the praiseworthy qualities. Come on, help me do this. Turn it from an enemy into a servant of Allah. For your soul, your unique place of you knows that your nafs does good for the beloved. So know this. This is two things that really has come to me, that our ego self is our false self. And we live in a world of duality. Our false self, what it's doing is telling us, oh, there's a real self. She who knows herself knows her Lord. And that real self is lined up with the divinity, is lined up with the divine. And that's what your heart, your whole being has been longing for since you got here, to find its way back up to its real self in the one with Allah. So the last thing I want to do is for us to work a little bit with Wali. And not Wali, the intimate friend, but Wali, the regent, the ruler, the governor. And the reason we're going to do that is this. Fawzia writes, Allah Wali guards us against seeing what we have achieved as ours, thereby falling into arrogance and complacency. Al-Wali protects us from yielding to and obeying the voice of the tyrannical ego, and takes us time and time again back to our inner guidance. Al-Wali grants us help, support, and protection on the path to our true self. W-A-L-I with the accent on both syllables, Wali. Not Wali, but Wali. Wali. So, Allah has blessed us with nafs. We wouldn't be on this journey if we didn't have nafs. We might be just robots, but Allah has given us this life in the dunya to test us, to call us back to Him, to see, to allow us to understand and come to know who we really are. And Wali, I have to make sure I'm saying it that the syllable's the same, is one of the divine attributes that can help us against our ego in a way that we're holding it and supporting it and helping it to not choose the darkness, but bringing it more and more to the light and choosing the light. And it's through our ego self that we choose to go, no, we're going to do that. And that ego self starts to melt away, melt away, melt away as our true self arises through the heart, through the soul, through the spirit. We come to know ourselves through each station more and more. So going into your heart, Allah. Ya Allah, Ya Wali. 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 Opening your heart up, allowing whatever part of yourself you identify with, that part of yourself you let manage your life still, allowing the light of Wali come in and help free it to bow more and more to Allah, deeper and deeper to Allah, saying, yes, my Lord, I allow you to manage my life so that my true self can shine. Ya Allah, Ya Wali. 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 So now we know why we have nafs and heart and soul and spirit and are called to the unity. Because Allah has nafs and heart and soul and spirit, and He is the unity. We are the mirror of Allah. And in His wisdom, He set it up in a way for us to know ourselves, to know Him, but also to open up all the doors so that we have the possibility, the chance of arriving with Him in the unity. So see how your nafs are really there to help you arrive at your heart's longing, to arrive home. Is the first step. So thank you all for listening. And we have a minute or so. Does anybody have a quick question? And then I'll close with the Fatiha. Shahida, yes. Unmute yourself. I'll take one question. Yes, beloved.
Okay, I'm gonna mute it now. Hi, Sharifa.
Hi.
I think the question I have is, when you were talking about the tips and that are helpful to think of when you're dealing with the nafs with compassion, I think you mentioned something like clad the nafs with the eternal attributes. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
What I meant by that is doing the vicar with the divine names.
Okay.
So that's one of our practices. Why we do it and why a lot of our healings are involved with that, because it helps purify the nafs and helps us then be able to open up to Allah bringing us divine attributes in its place,
Okay.
so that we become more and more our true self.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if someone that knows how to the correct spelling of Wali, because I looked up in the handout I have, I couldn't find it as an attribute.
Yeah, let me tell you, it's W-A-L-I. If you have Fauzia's book, it's on page 279. So there's two. There's Wali, which is W-A-L-I-Y. The accent's on the second syllable, and it means the intimate friend. But we're talking about Wali, W-A-L-I, and this is, people know it as the governor, the regent, the ruler. And that's the W-A-L-I, and there's accent on both the syllables, which means they're pronounced, the accent's the same, Wali. There's Wali, and what I was working with is Wali.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, you're welcome. So thank you again, and I will close us with the Fatiha. And you're more than welcome to email me or text me. I don't know if that's was in that you left. It was
it is. Your contact information was in the emails that go out.
Okay, good. So just text me or email me any questions you may have, and I'll be glad to answer them. But I don't want to keep anybody any longer. So we will close with the Fatiha, and I'll do a short dua before. Thank you, O Allah. I hope and pray, O Allah, that this resonated with the hearts, that they begin to really see how they need to treat their nafs, to treat themselves in the way that they would want others to treat themselves, in the way that Allah asks them to treat others. Because we all carry the nafs of Allah. And we are to be kind and good, not only to others, but to ourselves. For how we treat ourselves, how we treat others, is how we treat Allah. La ilaha illallah. Help them, O Allah, to really bring the ego self, their nafs, more and more into your light for healing, for purification, to bring the love and mercy, because there's nothing better than that for transformation into who you really created us to be. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Rahmanir rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina sirata mustaqim. Sirata ladina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim. Waladhdallin.